This presentation is brought to you by Hope Fair Housing Center, which is located in Wheaton, Illinois. The presentation delves into the COVID-19 pandemic and the effects that the pandemic has had on housing. We are now going to look at confirmed COVID-19 cases and deaths in the United States. As of March 2021, there have been more than 29.2 million confirmed cases in the United States. There have also been more than 527,000 deaths. Illinois currently accounts for more than 1.2 million cases and more than 23,000 deaths. Worldwide, there are now more than 118 million cases and 2.61 million deaths. The image presented comes from the New York Times and shows the hardest hit hotspots of the pandemic. As you can see, Illinois has been one of the hardest hit states and regions of the country. As we move on, we are going to look at the national economic impact that the COVID-19 pandemic has had on the United States economy. The COVID-19 pandemic and economic subsequent lockdowns that followed have impacted greatly the economy, as well both the world and United States economies. By the end of April 2020, over 30 million first-time claims for unemployment had been filed in the United States. As of October 2020, the country had lost over 10 million jobs. 30 states have lost more than 5% of their jobs. Leisure and hospitality jobs have been hardest hit, with 19.1% of those jobs being lost since the pandemic started. This figure translates to 2.8 million jobs lost in that industry alone. The first image at the top right of the slide shows the job change by industry. Furthermore, the highest unemployment rates in October of 2020 were 15.1% for Hawaii, 12.0% in Nevada, and 9.6% in New York. The bottom right image shows the unemployment rates of every state in the United States. Additionally, Black Americans have posted the highest unemployment rate during the pandemic, with a figure of 15.4% nationally, according to June 2020. The rate stood at 14.5% for Latinos, 13.8% for Asians, and 10.8% for white Americans, showing that people of color have been impacted more economically than their white counterparts. Though employment has increased since April 2020, figures for all groups have remained higher than pre-pandemic levels. On top of impacting healthcare and the economy, COVID-19 has also negatively impacted housing nationwide. In April of 2020, 31% of American adults reported that their households could not pay their rent or mortgage, as well as utilities. In June of 2020, 20% of households in the United States did not pay any rent by the first of the month. Also, in the week ending July 12, 2020, the total number of loans in forbearance was at 7.8%. Also, as of July, 15% of homeowners and 35% of renters feared that they would not be able to pay their next month's rent or mortgage. These statistics lead to the conclusion that at the height of the pandemic, 30 to 40 million people were at risk for eviction once the moratorium was lifted. However, as the pandemic and economy slowly improve, the current figure for those at risk of eviction is 11 million families nationwide. We looked into the national economic and housing impact of the pandemic. Now, let's look more closely at how Illinois has been affected. Being one of the hardest hit states of the country, Illinois has been greatly impacted. We have lost 417,000 jobs from February to October of 2020. In March 2021, Illinois' unemployment rate stood at 7.6%. This time last year, the unemployment rate stood at 3.7%. Illinois is also projected to lose 550,000 jobs by March 2021, marking a year after the pandemic first hit. 1 in 3 Illinois households is at risk of eviction once the moratorium is lifted. This means that anywhere from almost 1.2 million to 1.75 million Illinoisans could be evicted and become homeless. However, as we have seen, the federal government has passed a national eviction moratorium so that families cannot be evicted at this time. States like Illinois have also passed strict measures to further protect renters and homeowners. Let's look more at Illinois' eviction moratorium. Governor Pritzker passed an eviction moratorium in March 2020 and extended it recently to April 3rd of 2021. This means that evictions cannot be carried out for those who make less than $99,000 in 2020. However, tenants must fill out, sign, and submit a declaration form to their landlords. You are obligated to pay all rent that is due or past due once the moratorium is lifted. IHDA has approved 36,400 applications for the $5,000 in emergency rental assistance for Illinoisans. As we have noted in the prior statistics, not all communities have been affected the same throughout the pandemic nationally or statewide. The COVID-19 pandemic has disproportionately affected communities of color, especially Black and Latino communities. This is so because these communities are worse off and have been previously due to less access to healthcare, higher rates of poverty, among other factors. In 2009, pre-COVID, the US Census Bureau noted that 5.2% of white Americans were uninsured medically. 6.2% of Asian Americans were uninsured. However, the rates were 9.6% for Black Americans and 16.7% for Latino Americans. Because of this, Latino and Black Americans are 3 times as likely to become infected with COVID-19, and they are also nearly twice as likely to die from the virus. Let's take a closer look at how communities of color in Chicago have fared during the pandemic. Illinois, particularly Chicago, has showed this pattern of the virus affecting communities of color more to be true. There is a 22% test positivity rate for Latinos versus a 13% test positivity rate for non-Latinos in Illinois. Also, for Chicago confirmed cases by ethnicity and race per 100,000 people, Latinos have the highest rate at 1,720.6 people for every 100,000, compared to 1,184.8 for Black Chicagoans and 503.6 for white Chicagoans. Chicago deaths by ethnicity race also paint a grim picture for communities of color in the city. The Latino rate stands at 64.4 per every 100,000, compared to 104.3 for Black Chicagoans and 37.9 for white Chicagoans. The image shown shows COVID-19 cases by Chicago zip codes. As you can see, Black and brown neighborhoods are most affected by COVID-19. Little Village, which is zip code 60623, is the most affected Chicago neighborhood. It has a 2/3 Latino population and 31.2 cases per 100,000 residents. Now, what does all this information mean? Well, the COVID-19 pandemic puts into perspective the importance of where one lives. Where you live affects your quality of life, like educational, economic, and health opportunities, among others. Before COVID-19, people of color and marginalized groups were relegated to poor communities with less resources. COVID-19 is showcasing this housing inequality and what it means for disadvantaged people, especially through an economic and health lens. Here at Hope, we aim to create greater housing opportunities for disadvantaged groups so that everyone can enjoy the benefits of a stable and secure home. Currently, we are working to help those in less resource-driven communities that are fighting the virus while trying to stay afloat economically. So where does Hope Fair Housing Center fit into all of this? Many of Hope's service area communities have been hard hit economically due to COVID. Because of this, many in our service area are at risk of losing their housing or getting evicted by the time the pandemic ends. Hope has compiled the list of COVID-19 assistance resources for those in our community. These organizations for assistance can be found by the link provided on this presentation and also on our website. These different organizations and townships are providing emergency financial assistance along with food assistance and other assistance to help people get through these hard times. If you need any help or know of anyone that does, please feel free to contact Hope for Housing Center by visiting our website with more contact information.